Good morning and welcome to NCAM. I'm Darren Cantrell, one of the teaching pastors, and this morning we're continuing our small journey into Psalm 23, one of the foundational passages of the Old Testament. We've all heard it, whether we've attended a funeral where it's been recited, or we've heard it in a movie, or we remember it from Sunday school when we were kids. This chapter is written by King David, who is often referred to as the man after God's own heart. To know David is to know a man who wanted nothing more than to know God and to make sure other people knew that God existed because of God's grace and mercy. Now, even though David is regarded as a spiritual superhero, he made his share of mistakes. And in Psalm 23, he's reflecting on where he's been, what he's done wrong, and how God never left his side. Even though he wandered away from God time and time again, Psalm 23 verse 3 shows where his heart was. He says this, "He restores my soul." A few years back, Ken Burns released an amazing documentary on the Vietnam War. He spliced together hours and hours of footage from what is still considered one of the most controversial military events our country has ever experienced. A decision was made to fight communism in Southeast Asia. The Vietnam War began in 1955 and finally ended in 1975. By the time it was over, nearly 60,000 American men and women had been killed. If you're a Vietnam veteran, thank you for your service to our country. And I can't begin to imagine the difficulties you faced on the battlefield, as well as the rejection you may have experienced when you returned stateside. It's a painful memory, and many men and women are still dealing with that pain today. In watching that documentary, I was able to experience in a very small way what it was like for those teenagers who were thrown into a nightmare that often ended in death. In one episode, a camera follows a few soldiers run across some sand before diving towards the foot of a tree and hiding under some brush. Within seconds, all you can hear is gunfire and men screaming at one another. Within 2 or 3 minutes, the cameraman pulls back along with a couple of the soldiers that were in the frame. But once the cameraman and soldiers reach a safe area, they all realize that one soldier was left behind. They had no idea if he was alive or dead. All they knew is that they were safe and he probably wasn't. Have you ever experienced loneliness? And by that I don't mean eating by yourself in the lunch cafeteria, or not being invited to watch the big game with everyone else, or not getting the wedding invitation. I mean really lonely. Desperation lonely, like that soldier must have experienced 50 years ago on some desolate beach in Southeast Asia. There is one emotion that is always associated with loneliness, and that is hopelessness. And unlike other emotions, hopelessness is always empty, never full. You know, when someone is angry, we say that he's full of anger. When someone is really happy, we say that she's full of happiness. When somebody has nobody to turn to for hope, they are completely empty. They have nothing. It's like that young man who was left on that beach in Vietnam. In verse 3, David says that God offers to restore our soul, to replace our little empty kitchen bag of hopelessness and replace it with a huge double-ply, extra-wide trash bag full of hope. For David, God was his source of hope. While everything around him came crashing down, God promised David that he wasn't going to bail, that he was going to be the shepherd who never leaves. However, just because God never left, that whole world crashing down thing didn't go away for David. Wouldn't it be great if God would just remove all of the bad stuff once we agree to be his sheep and allow him to be our shepherd? That would be a great deal. I mean, who wouldn't sign up for that? But that's not the way he works. The jungle, with all the enemy fire, it doesn't go away. The layoffs due to coronavirus, those dying as a result of contracting the virus, the economic engine that is barely sputtering because of the virus, those things aren't going to go away if we just let go and let God. But God, our shepherd, Yahweh, has promised to stay with us until the very end. In the book of Matthew, Jesus said these words, "I am with you always to the very end of the age." I pray that your empty bag of hopelessness is replaced with a heavy bag of hope. As a team, we are here to help. Never hesitate to call us, message us on social media, or email us. You are so important to us, whether you call neighborhood your church home or not. If you're asking for help and looking for hope, we are here for you. Have a great day, and we'll talk tomorrow.